If you want to build an aesthetic physique, here's how you actually do it. Most people start working out without even knowing what the heck they're doing. That's why they end up with a kind of body that they didn't want to have. So you need to keep in mind that we are not simply working out, we are actually sculpting our bodies, so there are a couple of things we need to consider. The first thing is that we should not listen to the conventional advice we hear everywhere, things like just focus on compound movements and things like that. It might be good advice, but that's not what we want. We want to build an aesthetic physique, and the way we do it is by focusing on building the muscles that will give us that look. Some of these muscles are shoulders, upper chest, and lats. All the other muscles are important too, but these are the ones that will give you the V-taper look, which is what will make you more attractive. So instead of random compound movements, you can target these muscles individually so they can grow faster. For example, you can do lateral raises for shoulders, incline bench press for upper chest, and lat pull down to widen your back. When you work out these muscles, you'll start noticing how your upper body will start widening up and you'll become more attractive. Now obviously you're not gonna neglect the other muscle groups. You're gonna grow your arms, legs, and everything else to have a well-balanced body, but your priority should be getting the V-taper look. There are two muscle groups that are very important when it comes to becoming more aesthetic and more attractive that for some reason they are rarely talked about. That's why you're gonna see some people that have a somewhat attractive physique without a shirt, but when you put a shirt on, all of that is gone. And I'm not talking just about not having enough muscle mass, no. What I'm talking about is that they have neglected these two muscle groups and that made them look weaker than they actually are. These muscles I'm talking about are your neck and your forearms. Take a look at this picture. You can see that if you have a skinny neck and all we can see is your face, you'll instantly be way less attractive. So let's be honest. When was the last time you trained your neck? Here's another example. You see this guy doesn't look like anything special. But you zoom out and all of a sudden this guy is massive. Well, it's because someone neglected training his neck. So from now on, pay more attention to it. The other muscle group I was talking about is your forearms. Most people still believe that it is enough with these compact movements they constantly promote. I trusted that advice and never paid too much attention to this part either. But I was getting tired of putting a shirt on and look like I don't even work out. I thought I needed to get bigger or use tighter shirts, but that was not the problem. The problem was that the size of my forearms weren't as big as my other muscles. And since when you put a t-shirt on, for example, the part that remains visible is your forearms. Once I started training them separately, I started noticing how even with looser shirts, I looked like I actually trained. And let's be honest, isn't this beautiful? I mean, definitely working your forearms will set you apart and make you way more aesthetic.
That makes no sense. Your forearms are so muscular, I thought you...
Now the next part, if you want this aesthetic look, you must be on a lower body fat percentage, a body fat percentage that allows you to have your abs visible, because yes, having visible abs is part of the aesthetic look too. I didn't mention it in the previous part because it doesn't matter how much you train your abs, if you carry a lot of fat you will not be able to see them. So if you are on the chubby side of the spectrum, you need to get into a calorie deficit. Of course you know this, but just in case, a calorie deficit is consuming less calories than you burn. When you do this, you're forcing your body to use stored fat as energy, so you start getting leaner. This video is not about which diet you could follow, but if I could recommend you something very quick, it would be to just cut down on ultra-processed foods and sugar. That alone will make a huge difference. So focus on growing the muscles that will give you the V-taper look. Don't neglect your neck or forearms. Get into a calorie deficit so you can get leaner and have visible abs. Of course you have to train them too. Basic exercises like machine crunches, leg raises, and up wheel rollouts will do. And that's how you finally become more aesthetic. That's everything for this video. Subscribe if you like this, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.